The fork clattered against the fine china plate, the sound sharp enough to make nearby diners glance over. Ethan Wright watched his blind date, a woman named Rebecca who wore too much perfume and an expression of barely concealed disgust, push back her chair with enough force to make it scrape against the polished floor. "You didn't tell me you were deaf," she said, her lips moving in that exaggerated way people used when they thought it helped. "It didn't?" Ethan had been reading lips since he was 4 years old, and hers were forming words dripping with contempt. "I don't have time for this. I'm sorry, but I can't do this." She grabbed her designer purse, the kind that cost more than most people's monthly rent, and walked away without looking back. The waiter approached cautiously, clearly unsure whether to clear her plate or pretend nothing had happened. Ethan signed slowly, spelling out the words, "Just the check, please." The restaurant hummed with holiday cheer around him. Garland draped every surface, twinkling with white lights. A Christmas tree stood in the corner, decorated with red and gold ornaments that caught the chandelier's glow. Couples laughed at nearby tables, clinking glasses of wine, celebrating the season. And here sat Ethan Wright, 32 years old, founder and CEO of Wright Technologies, worth more money than he could spend in 3 lifetimes, utterly and completely alone. This wasn't the first time. It wasn't even the 5th. Dating apps, blind dates, introductions from well-meaning friends, they all ended the same way. The moment people realized he couldn't hear them, something shifted. Some tried to hide their discomfort. Others, like Rebecca, didn't bother. Ethan signed to the waiter again, this time with more urgency. The young man nodded and hurried away. The other diners had stopped pretending not to stare. He could feel their pity like a physical weight pressing down on his shoulders. Poor deaf man rejected on Christmas Eve. What a tragedy. He hated pity more than he hated the loneliness. The waiter returned with the check and Ethan pulled out his wallet. His hands shook slightly as he placed his credit card on the small leather folder. He was angry, hurt, and tired of pretending it didn't bother him. Every rejection carved out a little more of his heart, leaving him hollow. As he signed the receipt, movement caught his eye. 2 small girls, identical twins with dark brown skin and hair styled in neat braids tied with red ribbons, stood a few feet away. They couldn't have been more than 7 years old, both wearing matching green dresses with white cardigans. They were staring at him with wide eyes, not with pity or discomfort but with excitement. Before Ethan could process what was happening, both girls raised their hands and signed in perfect ASL, "Hello. We saw you signing. Can we join you?" Ethan's throat tightened. He blinked rapidly, trying to process this unexpected kindness. The girls smiled at him, their faces open and genuine. No judgment. No discomfort. Just pure, innocent friendliness. A woman's voice cut through his surprise. "Amara, Alina, get back here right now." "I'm so sorry, sir, they just ran off." "Girls, we talked about this." Ethan looked up and his breath caught. The woman hurrying toward them was beautiful in a way that made his chest ache. She wore a red wool coat over jeans and a blue sweater, her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. Her brown eyes were tired but kind, and right now they were filled with embarrassment as she tried to corral her daughters. "It's okay," Ethan signed, then remembered she might not understand. He pulled out his phone and typed quickly, "They're fine. They were just being friendly." The woman read the message and her expression softened. "They've been learning sign language at school. There's a deaf student in their class and they wanted to communicate with him. Now they sign to everyone." She gently touched each girl's shoulder. "But you can't just run up to strangers, remember?" "He's not a stranger, Mama," one of the twins said, still signing as she spoke. "He's like Tommy from school. We can talk to him." "With our hands," the other twin added, demonstrating by signing hello again. The mother looked mortified, but Ethan found himself smiling for the first time all evening. He typed another message, "Please let them stay for a minute. I'd enjoy the company." The woman hesitated, glancing at the empty chair across from him where Rebecca had been sitting. Her eyes were sharp, taking in the 2 wine glasses, the barely touched plates of food. She understood what had happened without him needing to explain. "Are you sure?" she asked, speaking clearly so he could read her lips. "We don't want to intrude." Ethan shook his head and gestured to the empty chairs. The twins didn't wait for their mother's permission. They climbed into chairs on either side of him, their small faces beaming with joy. "I'm Amara," one signed and said simultaneously. "I'm Alina," the other added. "We're twins but Mama says we're individuals too." Their mother sighed but sat down in the chair across from Ethan. "I'm Rochelle Parker. And these 2 tornadoes are my daughters. I really am sorry for interrupting your dinner." Ethan typed, "You didn't interrupt. You saved it. I'm Ethan Wright." Rochelle read the message and offered a small smile. Up close, he could see the exhaustion in her eyes, the way her shoulders sagged slightly as if she'd been carrying a heavy burden for too long. Her coat, while clean, was worn at the edges. Her jeans had a small patch on one knee. But she held herself with dignity, and when she looked at her daughters, her whole face lit up with love. "What are you doing at a fancy restaurant on Christmas Eve?" Amara asked, signing as she spoke. "Don't you have family?" "Amara," Rochelle said sharply. "That's not polite." But Ethan was already typing. "I was supposed to have dinner with someone but she left. And no, I don't have family nearby. What about you three?" Alina leaned forward, her elbows on the table. "We were walking around looking at Christmas lights. Mama says we can't afford to eat here, but we like to look at the pretty decorations through the window." Rochelle's face flushed with embarrassment. "Girls?" The waiter appeared at the table, looking uncertain. Ethan quickly typed a message and showed it to him. "3 more menus, please. And bring some hot chocolate for the girls." "Sir, we don't have," the waiter began. Ethan typed again, "Then please have someone get some from the coffee shop next door. I'll pay whatever it costs." The waiter nodded and disappeared. Rochelle immediately shook her head. "Mr. Wright, we can't let you do that. We were just stopping in for a moment." "Please," Ethan typed, holding the phone so she could see. "It's Christmas Eve. I'm alone, you're here, and your daughters have already made this the best part of my day. Let me buy you dinner. Please." Could you really blame him for wanting company? For not wanting to spend Christmas Eve eating alone while couples laughed and celebrated around him? Could you judge a man for finding joy in the presence of 2 little girls who saw him as a person, not a disability? If you've ever felt invisible, left behind, or rejected, please take a moment to subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever had a stranger change your life with a simple act of kindness? Rochelle looked at her daughters, who were practically bouncing in their seats with excitement, then back at Ethan. He could see her weighing her pride against her daughter's happiness. Finally, she nodded slowly. "Okay," she said. "But only because it's Christmas and because you look like you could use some company too." "Thank you, Mr. Wright." "Ethan," he typed. "Please call me Ethan." The twins cheered, and for the first time in months, Ethan felt something other than loneliness. He felt hope. As the waiter brought menus and the promised hot chocolate appeared in festive mugs with whipped cream and peppermint sticks, Ethan watched Rochelle help her daughters choose their meals. She guided them toward the less expensive items, but Ethan subtly pointed to other dishes, encouraging the girls to order what they really wanted. Amara ordered chicken fingers with fries, signing "thank you" with perfect form. Alina chose spaghetti with meatballs, her eyes wide with delight when the waiter confirmed they had it. Rochelle ordered a simple Caesar salad, but Ethan typed a message to the waiter that he hoped she wouldn't see, "Bring her the salmon special as well." As they waited for their food, the twins asked Ethan question after question. How did he learn to sign? Did he go to a special school? Could he feel music if he touched speakers? What was it like to not hear birds singing? Rochelle tried several times to shush them, but Ethan waved her off. He answered each question patiently, typing responses and showing them pictures on his phone. He told them about his cochlear implant, which he'd had since childhood but didn't always wear because it gave him headaches. He explained how he'd built his company from nothing, creating software that helped deaf and hard of hearing people communicate more easily with the hearing world. "You're rich?" Alina asked bluntly, making her mother gasp. "Alina Rose Parker," Rochelle said, her voice sharp with embarrassment. But Ethan laughed, actually laughed, something he hadn't done in weeks. He typed, "Yes, I suppose I am. But money doesn't buy happiness. It doesn't buy friendship or love. It can't make people see past your differences." Amara reached over and patted his hand. "We see you," she signed carefully. "Not your ears. You." Something cracked open in Ethan's chest, something that had been locked away for a long time. These 2 little girls, with their perfect sign language and open hearts, saw him as a person. Not a disability. Not a limitation. Just Ethan. When the food arrived, the girls dug in with enthusiasm. Rochelle looked at the salmon plate the waiter set in front of her with confusion, then at Ethan. He pretended not to notice, cutting into his own steak. After a moment, she picked up her fork and took a bite. He watched her close her eyes briefly, savoring the taste of a meal she probably hadn't been able to afford in months. They ate slowly, talking between bites. Or rather, Rochelle and the girls talked while Ethan watched and responded via his phone. He learned that Rochelle worked 2 jobs, one at a grocery store during the day and another cleaning offices at night. The twins stayed with a neighbor after school until Rochelle could pick them up. "It's hard," Rochelle admitted, her voice soft. But we're managing. The girls are happy and healthy, and that's what matters. What about you? Ethan typed. Are you happy? Rochelle looked at him for a long moment, something vulnerable flickering across her face. I'm content, she finally said. I have my girls. That's enough. But Ethan could see it wasn't enough. He could see the weariness in her eyes, the way her hands trembled slightly when she set down her fork. She was exhausted, running on empty, giving everything to her daughters and leaving nothing for herself. As the meal wound down, the girls began to yawn. It was getting late, past their bedtime. Rochelle checked her phone and her expression tightened. We should go, she said, starting to gather their coats. Thank you so much for dinner, Ethan. This was incredibly kind of you. Where are you staying tonight? Ethan typed before she could stand up. Rochelle hesitated, and in that hesitation Ethan saw everything. The worry. The fear. The desperation she was trying so hard to hide from her daughters. We're between places right now, she said carefully. We have a motel room for tonight. We'll figure out something more permanent after Christmas. The twins were occupied with stirring the remains of their hot chocolate, not paying attention to their mother's words. But Ethan heard what Rochelle wasn't saying. They'd been evicted. They had nowhere to go. On Christmas Eve, this woman and her two beautiful daughters were going to sleep in a motel room, probably one in a rough neighborhood, the kind of place where she'd have to wedge a chair under the door and lie awake all night to keep her children safe. Ethan's mind raced. He could help. He should help. But he'd learned from experience that people had pride, especially people like Rochelle who worked hard and asked for nothing. If he offered wrong, she'd refuse. She'd walk out of this restaurant and he'd never see her again. But if he didn't offer, if he let them walk away, he'd never forgive himself. He typed slowly, choosing his words carefully. I have a townhouse that's been sitting empty for 6 months. 3 bedrooms, fully furnished. I bought it as an investment property but haven't found the right tenant yet. You could stay there just for a few days until you find something permanent. No rent, just keep it clean. Rochelle stared at the message, her lips pressed into a thin line. I can't, she said. That's too much. We don't even know you. Mama, Amara said, signing as she spoke. Mr. Ethan is nice. And you said the motel smells funny. It does smell funny, Alina confirmed. Like old socks and sadness. Despite the seriousness of the situation, Ethan had to suppress a smile. Rochelle looked torn, glancing between her daughters and Ethan. He could see her wavering, her practical side warring with her pride. He typed another message. Your daughters need a safe place to sleep. Let me help. Please. Consider it a Christmas gift. The fight went out of Rochelle's shoulders. She looked at her daughters, then back at Ethan. Why? She asked simply. Why would you do this for strangers? Ethan thought about Rebecca walking out. About all the other dates who'd made excuses and disappeared. About sitting in his penthouse apartment, surrounded by luxury but drowning in loneliness. About these 2 little girls who'd seen him as a person worth knowing. He typed, because your daughters reminded me that kindness exists. Because you all walked into my life when I needed it most. Because it's Christmas and nobody should spend it in a motel that smells like old socks and sadness. Rochelle laughed, a sound that was half sob. She wiped at her eyes quickly, trying to hide the tears. Okay, she whispered. Okay. But just for a few days until I can find something we can afford. And I'll pay you back somehow, I promise. There's nothing to pay back, Ethan typed. Just let me help. As they left the restaurant together, Ethan arranged for a car to take them to the townhouse. The twins held his hands, one on each side, swinging their arms as they walked. Rochelle walked beside them, her red coat bright against the falling snow. Ethan looked up at the night sky, at the snowflakes drifting down through the Christmas lights strung across the street. For the first time in his life, being deaf had led to something beautiful. Those 2 little girls had noticed him signing. They'd approached him because of his deafness, not despite it. Maybe, just maybe, this Christmas was going to change everything. The townhouse sat on a quiet street lined with old oak trees, their branches bare but elegant against the winter sky. Ethan watched from the car as Rochelle and the twins stood on the sidewalk, staring up at the red brick building with wide eyes. This is it? Rochelle asked, turning to face him. This is your empty investment property? Ethan nodded, typing quickly on his phone. 3 bedrooms upstairs, updated kitchen, furnished. The heat works, and I had someone stock the fridge last month before I decided to hold off on renting it out. Rochelle's hands shook as she accepted the key he offered. Ethan, this is too much. This place must be worth. It's worth more to me knowing you and the girls will be safe, he typed. Please. Go inside, get settled. There are fresh linens in the closet. Make yourselves at home. Amara and Alina were already racing up the front steps, their excitement boundless despite the late hour. Rochelle looked like she wanted to argue more, but exhaustion won out. She simply nodded, whispered, "Thank you," and followed her daughters inside. Ethan waited in the car until he saw lights turn on in the windows. He watched shadows move across the curtains as Rochelle and the girls explored their temporary home. Only when he was certain they were safely inside did he signal the driver to leave. That night, alone in his penthouse apartment 30 floors above the city, Ethan couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about Rochelle's tired eyes, the twins' enthusiasm for life despite their circumstances. He thought about how naturally they'd communicated with him, how they'd made him feel normal for the first time in years. The next morning, Christmas Day, Ethan's phone buzzed with a text message. Unknown number. He opened it. "This is Rochelle. The twins found your number on the fridge note. They're asking if you have plans today. If not, would you like to join us for Christmas breakfast? We can't offer much, but we make excellent pancakes." Ethan stared at the message for a full minute. He'd planned to spend Christmas the way he spent most holidays, working, reviewing quarterly reports, maybe ordering takeout that would sit half-eaten on his desk. The idea of a real Christmas morning with a family, even a temporary borrowed one, made his chest tight. He typed back, "I'd love to. What time?" "Whenever you want. We're not going anywhere." Ethan arrived at the townhouse at 9 o'clock, carrying bags from the nearby grocery store. He'd spent an hour walking the aisles, picking out ingredients for a proper Christmas breakfast. Eggs, bacon, fresh fruit, orange juice, cinnamon rolls, and everything needed for hot chocolate from scratch. Rochelle answered the door wearing the same jeans from last night but a different sweater, this one green with a reindeer on the front. Her hair was down now, falling in soft waves around her shoulders. She looked younger, more relaxed than she had at the restaurant. "You didn't have to bring anything," she said, eyeing the grocery bags. Ethan pulled out his phone. "I wanted to contribute. Consider it payment for the pancakes." The twins appeared behind their mother, still in their pajamas, faces bright with joy. They both signed "Merry Christmas" at the same time, then dissolved into giggles. The morning unfolded with easy warmth. Rochelle made pancakes while Ethan cooked bacon and scrambled eggs. The twins set the table, carefully placing napkins and forks at each spot. They worked together like a team, moving around each other in the small kitchen with surprising coordination. When Rochelle needed something from a high shelf, Ethan reached it for her. When he couldn't find the spatula, Amara pointed it out. When Alina spilled orange juice, they all cleaned it up together without fuss or blame. They ate at the small dining table, the twins chattering nonstop about everything they'd discovered in the house. Their bedroom had twin beds with matching blue comforters. The bathroom had a tub big enough for bubble baths. The backyard had a tree perfect for climbing when the weather got warmer. Ethan watched Rochelle as she listened to her daughters, her face soft with contentment. She caught him looking and smiled, a genuine smile that reached her eyes. He quickly looked down at his plate, his heart beating faster than it should. After breakfast they moved to the living room. Ethan had noticed a small fake Christmas tree in the corner, still in its box. Without discussion they all worked together to set it up. The twins hung ornaments they'd apparently found in a storage closet while Rochelle and Ethan wrestled with the light strings. "The previous owner must have left these decorations," Rochelle said, holding up a silver star. "They're beautiful." Ethan didn't tell her that he'd had his assistant purchase everything yesterday evening and have it delivered. The tree, the ornaments, the lights, all of it. He wanted them to have a real Christmas, not just a roof over their heads. When the tree was finished, they sat on the floor around it, admiring their work. The twins leaned against Ethan, one on each side, completely comfortable. He couldn't remember the last time someone had touched him so casually, so trustingly. "Mr. Ethan," Amara signed, speaking at the same time. "Can you teach us more signs? We only know a little bit." "Just Ethan," he typed, then added with a smile. "And yes, I can teach you." They spent the next hour practicing. Ethan showed them signs for different foods, animals, and feelings. The twins picked it up quickly, their small hands forming the shapes with increasing confidence. Rochelle sat on the couch, watching with a soft expression. "They really love this," she said during a break. "Learning sign language has been their favorite thing this year." Ethan typed, "They're good at it. Natural." "They're good kids," Rochelle replied. "I got lucky." "Where's their father?" The question came out before Ethan could stop himself. He immediately added, "Sorry, you don't have to answer that." Rochelle was quiet for a moment, her eyes distant. "He left when they were 6 months old." Said he didn't sign up for twins, didn't want the responsibility. I haven't seen him since. He sends money sometimes when he remembers, but it's never regular. Ethan felt anger rise in his chest. What kind of man abandoned his children? His beautiful daughters? I'm sorry, he typed. Don't be, Rochelle said firmly. We're better off without him. The girls are happy, healthy, and loved. That's what matters. But Ethan could see the cost written on her face, in the shadows under her eyes, in the way her shoulders carried tension even when she smiled. Raising twins alone, working 2 jobs, never having a moment to rest or breathe or just be. How long could someone keep that up before they broke? Alina climbed into her mother's lap, yawning. The excitement of the morning was catching up with her. Amara wasn't far behind, her eyes drooping as she leaned harder against Ethan. Nap time, Rochelle announced, gently lifting Alina. Come on girls. Let's rest for a bit. The twins protested but didn't resist much. As Rochelle carried them upstairs, Ethan stood and began cleaning up the breakfast dishes. He was rinsing plates when Rochelle returned. You don't have to do that, she said, moving to help anyway. They worked side by side in comfortable silence. Ethan washed, Rochelle dried. It felt domestic, normal, like something they'd done 100 times before instead of just once. When the last dish was put away, Rochelle made tea and they sat at the kitchen table. She wrapped her hands around her mug, watching the steam rise. I need to tell you something, she said, not meeting his eyes. I got evicted 3 days ago. The landlord raised our rent by $400 and I couldn't afford it. I've been trying to find a new place, but everything in our price range is in terrible neighborhoods or requires first and last month's rent plus a deposit, and I just don't have it. I've been working 2 jobs, saving every penny, but it's never enough. The girls don't know how bad it is. I've been telling them it's an adventure, that we're going to find an even better place. She finally looked up and Ethan saw tears in her eyes. So when I say thank you, I mean it. You saved us. We were going to spend Christmas in a motel and then what? I had 5 days to figure something out before my savings ran out completely. You gave us time. You gave us hope. I don't know how to repay that. Ethan's fingers flew across his phone screen. You don't have to repay anything. But I want to help more. Will you let me? Rochelle tensed. Ethan. I have a proposition, he typed quickly. A business proposition. I run a charitable foundation that helps low-income families, provides technology education, supports disability rights organizations. I need someone to manage it. Someone who understands what it's like to struggle, who has empathy and organizational skills. Someone honest and hardworking. He paused, then added, I think that person is you. Rochelle stared at him, her tea forgotten. You want to hire me? Ethan, you barely know me. I know enough, he typed. I know you're working 2 jobs to support your daughters. I know you've been living in impossible circumstances and still managing to raise 2 kind, intelligent, well-adjusted children. I know you're proud but practical. I know you walked into a restaurant last night prepared to pull your daughters away from a stranger but stayed because you recognize genuine kindness. That's exactly the kind of judgment I need. What about my current jobs? Rochelle asked, but Ethan could see her wavering. This would pay more than both combined. Full-time with benefits. Healthcare for you and the girls. Retirement savings. Normal hours so you can actually spend time with your daughters. And you can live here. It's close to their school, close to the office. Safe neighborhood, good schools. Rochelle stood up abruptly, walking to the window. She stood there for a long moment, her shoulders rigid. Ethan waited, giving her space to process. When she turned around, there were tears streaming down her face. Why? She asked, her voice breaking. Why are you doing all of this for us? Ethan stood and walked over to her. He pulled out his phone and typed slowly, making sure each word was right. Because last night I was ready to give up on people. I was sitting in that restaurant feeling sorry for myself, thinking I'd always be alone because of my deafness. Then your daughters ran over and signed to me like it was the most natural thing in the world. They didn't see my disability. They saw a person they could talk to. In 5 minutes, 2 7-year-old girls showed me more kindness than I've received from adults in years. How could I not help their mother? How could I not try to pay forward what they gave me? Rochelle read the message, then read it again. She wiped her eyes, took a deep breath, and nodded. Okay, she whispered. Okay, I'll take the job. I'll accept your help. And I promise you won't regret it. I'll work harder than anyone you've ever hired. I'll prove that your faith in me was justified. You already have, Ethan typed. They stood in the kitchen, snow falling gently outside the window, Christmas lights twinkling on the tree in the next room. Somewhere upstairs, the twins slept peacefully, safe and warm. And for the first time in longer than he could remember, Ethan felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be. Rochelle reached out and squeezed his hand briefly, a gesture of gratitude and something more. Something that made Ethan's breath catch and his heart race. "Merry Christmas, Ethan," she said. He smiled and signed back, knowing she'd understand. "Merry Christmas, Rochelle." The first Monday after Christmas, Rochelle stood in front of the mirror in her new bedroom, smoothing down her blue blazer. She'd bought it at a thrift store 2 years ago for a job interview that hadn't panned out, but it still looked professional. Paired with black slacks and simple heels, it would have to do. Her hands shook slightly as she adjusted her collar. This job, this chance, it was more than she'd ever hoped for. And the weight of not disappointing Ethan felt enormous. "Mama, you look pretty," Amara said from the doorway, Alina right behind her. "Like a boss lady," Alina added, making her sister giggle. Rochelle smiled despite her nerves. "Thank you, babies. Are you sure you're okay with the new after-school program?" The community center was 3 blocks away with homework help and activities until 6 o'clock. It was safe, affordable, and the twins seemed excited about it. Still, Rochelle worried. She always worried. "We'll be fine, Mama," Amara signed and said. Mr. Ethan checked it out. He said it's good. That was true. Ethan had visited the center himself, met the staff, reviewed their credentials and safety protocols. He'd sent Rochelle a detailed report that had eased her concerns considerably. "All right," Rochelle said, kissing both girls on the forehead. "Bus arrives in 10 minutes. Remember the rules? Stay together," they chanted in unison. "Go straight to the center. Don't talk to strangers. Call if anything feels wrong. Good girls?" Rochelle walked them to the bus stop, watching until the yellow bus rolled away with her daughters safely aboard. Then she walked the 8 blocks to Wright Technologies headquarters, a gleaming glass building in the business district. The lobby was massive, with modern furniture and abstract art on the walls. Rochelle approached the reception desk, feeling out of place in her thrift store blazer. "Rochelle Parker," she said. "I'm here to see Ethan Wright." The receptionist smiled warmly. "Mr. Wright is expecting you. Take the elevator to the 20th floor. His assistant will meet you there." The elevator ride felt like it lasted forever. Rochelle practiced breathing exercises, trying to calm her racing heart. She could do this. She would do this. Her daughters were counting on her. The elevator doors opened to a modern office space with an open floor plan. A woman in her 50s with silver hair approached, her smile genuine. "Rochelle? I'm Patricia, Ethan's assistant. Welcome." Patricia led her through the office, past cubicles where people worked at computers, through a conference room with a glass wall, to a corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Ethan stood when she entered, his face breaking into a smile. He wore a sharp gray suit with a maroon tie, looking every inch the successful businessman. But his eyes held the same warmth she'd seen on Christmas morning. "Good morning," he signed, then pulled out his phone. "Ready for your first day?" Rochelle nodded, clutching her purse. "Ready." He gestured to a chair across from his desk. As she sat, Patricia brought in coffee and quietly excused herself. "Let me explain what the foundation does," Ethan typed. "We have 3 main programs: technology education for underserved communities, grants for disability rights organizations, and direct assistance for families in crisis. Last year we helped over 2,000 families." He pulled up presentations on his computer, showing her charts and photographs. Rochelle saw images of children learning to code, adults receiving hearing aids, families moving into safe housing. "This is incredible," she said, genuinely awed. "You're changing lives." "We're trying," Ethan typed. "But I've been spread too thin. I need someone to manage the day-to-day operations. Interview grant applicants, coordinate with partner organizations, handle events and fundraising. You'd have a team of 3 people to help you and I'd still be involved, but you'd make most decisions." Rochelle felt panic rising. "Ethan, I worked at a grocery store. I don't have experience with nonprofits or management." "You have something better," he typed. "You understand the people we're trying to help because you've been there. You know what it's like to choose between rent and groceries. You know how to stretch a dollar until it screams. You know the difference between what people need and what they ask for. That's what this job requires. Everything else you can learn." He stood and gestured for her to follow. They walked through the office again, this time stopping at a smaller corner office. It had a desk, a bookshelf, and windows with a view of the city. "This is yours," Ethan typed. Rochelle stared at the space. Her own office. With a door. And windows. She thought about the grocery store where she'd worked, standing at a register for 8-hour shifts, her feet aching. She thought about cleaning offices at night, scrubbing toilets while exhaustion pulled at her bones. "I won't let you down," she said, her voice thick with emotion. Ethan's response was simple, "I know." The first week passed in a blur. Patricia trained Rochelle on the computer systems, the filing methods, the grant application process. She met her team: Trevor, a recent college graduate who handled social media; Nina, an accountant in her 30s who managed the finances; and Carlos, a program coordinator who visited sites and vetted organizations. They were welcoming but clearly curious about how Rochelle had gotten this position. She could see the questions in their eyes but appreciated that they kept them to themselves. She worked harder than necessary, arriving early and staying late, determined to prove she belonged. Ethan checked on her several times a day, either stopping by her office or sending messages. He answered her questions patiently, never making her feel stupid for not knowing something. "How do you prefer to communicate?" she asked him on Wednesday, catching him in the hall. "Text? Email? Should I learn more sign language?" He pulled out his phone. "Whatever works for you. But if you want to learn more ASL, I'd be happy to teach you." The twins could join us. That became their new routine. 3 evenings a week after dinner at the townhouse, Ethan gave them sign language lessons. They practiced vocabulary, worked on sentence structure, learned the grammar rules that made ASL its own distinct language. Amara and Alina soaked it up like sponges, their small hands becoming more confident with each session. Rochelle struggled more, her adult brain working harder to form new neural pathways. But she persisted, determined to communicate with Ethan more naturally. During one lesson, while the twins practiced their numbers, Ethan and Rochelle sat at the kitchen table going over foundation paperwork. "Tell me about this family," Rochelle said, pointing to an application. "The Johnsons. They're asking for help with medical bills after their son's accident." Ethan read the application, then typed, "What do you think?" "I think their need is genuine," Rochelle said. "But I'm concerned about the amount. They're asking for $15,000. That's a significant portion of our emergency fund." "Keep reading," Ethan typed. Rochelle continued through the application, noting the details. The family had insurance, but it didn't cover everything. The father had taken time off work unpaid to care for his son. They were 3 months behind on rent and facing eviction. "They need help," Rochelle said finally. "But maybe we can offer something beyond just money. Could we connect them with a medical advocate? Help negotiate the bills down? Maybe partner with the hospital to set up a payment plan?" Ethan's face lit up. He typed quickly, "Perfect. That's exactly the kind of thinking we need. You're not just throwing money at the problem. You're looking for sustainable solutions." Rochelle felt warmth spread through her chest. She was good at this. Actually good at it. The realization was intoxicating. "Mama, watch us," Alina called from the living room. They looked up to see both twins signing a complex sentence about their day at school. Ethan applauded, and the girls beamed with pride. "They're really talented," Ethan typed to Rochelle. "They love it," she replied. "They talk about you constantly. Mr. Ethan this, Mr. Ethan that. You've become very important to them." Ethan's expression softened. He typed slowly, "They're important to me too. You all are." The moment stretched between them, charged with something unspoken. Rochelle felt her breath catch, felt heat rise to her cheeks. She looked away first, focusing on the paperwork in front of her. But she could feel Ethan's eyes on her, and her heart beat faster than it should. By the end of the second week, Rochelle had fully settled into her new role. She'd reviewed dozens of applications, visited 3 partner organizations, and planned her first fundraising event. Trevor had taught her social media basics, and she'd written her first blog post for the foundation's website about the importance of seeing people, not just their circumstances. It had gone viral within the nonprofit community, shared thousands of times, earning praise for its authentic voice. "You're a natural at this," Nina said over coffee in the break room. "Ethan was right to hire you." "He took a big risk," Rochelle replied. "Maybe," Nina said thoughtfully. "But Ethan has good instincts about people. And he's happier than I've seen him in years. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it." That evening, Rochelle came home to find Ethan helping the twins with homework at the kitchen table. He'd let himself in with his key, something that was becoming more common. The girls were working on math while he checked their answers. "Ethan," Rochelle said, setting down her work bag. "You don't have to do this." He looked up and signed, "I wanted to. Is that okay?" "Of course it's okay," she said, emotion clogging her throat. "It's more than okay." She watched him help Alina work through a multiplication problem, his patience endless. She watched Amara lean against his arm as she wrote her spelling words. She watched her daughters, who'd grown up without a father, find comfort and joy in this man's presence. And she felt something shift inside her. Something that felt like falling, like flying, like coming home. Later, after the twins were in bed, Rochelle and Ethan sat on the couch with mugs of tea. The Christmas tree lights still twinkled in the corner, even though it was early January. Neither of them had wanted to take it down. "I want to pay rent," Rochelle said suddenly. "You're paying me a good salary. I should contribute." Ethan shook his head and typed, "No. This house would sit empty otherwise. You're doing me a favor by keeping it occupied." "Ethan." "Rochelle," he typed, his eyes meeting hers. "Let me do this, please. You're working hard, you're amazing at your job, you're raising two incredible daughters. Let me help with this one thing." She wanted to argue. Pride demanded it. But gratitude, exhaustion, and relief won out. "Thank you," she whispered. "For everything. I don't know how I'll ever repay you." Ethan's response was immediate. "You already have. You let me be part of your lives. That's payment enough." They sat in comfortable silence, the house quiet around them. Outside, snow began to fall again, covering the world in white. And inside, something new and fragile and beautiful was taking root. Something that felt a lot like hope. January melted into February, and life settled into a rhythm that felt almost normal. Rochelle thrived in her new role at the foundation, developing programs and forging partnerships with local organizations. The twins adjusted to their after-school routine and continued their sign language lessons with Ethan 3 times a week. But something was changing, something subtle and electric that hummed beneath the surface of their everyday interactions. Ethan found himself looking for excuses to see Rochelle. He'd stop by her office to discuss cases that could have been handled through email. He'd arrive at the townhouse earlier than necessary for their evening lessons. He memorized the way she tucked her hair behind her ear when she was concentrating, the sound of her laugh, the precise shade of brown in her eyes. For her part, Rochelle caught herself dressing more carefully on days she knew she'd see Ethan. She'd wear the green sweater he'd once complimented, or put on the blue scarf that matched her favorite blouse. She found herself replaying their conversations, analyzing every gesture, every text message, looking for signs that he might feel what she was feeling. It was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. On Valentine's Day, Ethan showed up at the office with a dozen red roses. Rochelle's heart leapt when Patricia brought them to her desk. But the card read, "For the whole team. Thank you for your hard work, Ethan." Rochelle felt foolish for her disappointment. What had she expected? Ethan was her boss, her benefactor, her friend. He'd never indicated he wanted anything more. That evening, she came home to find the twins making Valentine's cards at the kitchen table. Construction paper, glitter, and markers were spread across every surface. "We're making cards for everyone," Amara announced. "One for you, one for our teacher, one for Mr. Ethan," Alina added. "Mr. Ethan gets the biggest one," Amara said seriously. "Because he's special." Rochelle helped them finish the cards, trying to ignore the ache in her chest. She shouldn't want more than what Ethan was already giving them. He'd changed their lives, provided them with security and hope. Wanting his heart too felt greedy. But hearts didn't listen to logic. The doorbell rang at 7 o'clock. Ethan stood on the porch holding a large white box. "What's this?" Rochelle asked as she let him in. He set the box on the table and opened it to reveal a beautiful cake, chocolate with raspberry filling, decorated with heart-shaped strawberries. "Happy Valentine's Day," he signed, then typed on his phone. "I thought we could celebrate together. If that's okay." The twins shrieked with excitement, dancing around the kitchen. Rochelle felt tears prick her eyes. When was the last time someone had celebrated Valentine's Day with her? When had anyone thought to make the day special? They ate cake and watched a movie together, the four of them crowded on the couch. Somewhere during the film, Alina fell asleep against Rochelle's shoulder while Amara dozed against Ethan's chest. Rochelle looked over at Ethan in the flickering light of the television. He was watching the twins sleep, his expression so tender it made her heart hurt. He must have felt her gaze because he looked up and their eyes met. The moment stretched. Neither of them looked away. Rochelle saw something in his eyes, something that made her breath catch. Longing. Affection. Maybe more. But then Amara stirred and the moment broke. Ethan carefully lifted the little girl and carried her upstairs while Rochelle followed with Alina. They tucked the twins into bed together, a practice team. Downstairs, the air felt thick with unspoken words. Rochelle walked Ethan to the door, her heart pounding. "Thank you for tonight," she said. "The cake was perfect. Ethan pulled out his phone, but his fingers hovered over the screen. He seemed to be debating something. Finally he typed, "I enjoy spending time with you. All of you. More than I've enjoyed anything in a long time." "We enjoy it too," Rochelle said softly. "You've become part of our family." Family. The word hung between them. Was that all she was to him? Was that all he could be to her? Ethan nodded slowly and said good night. Rochelle watched him walk to his car, every step feeling like a missed opportunity. The next week, the foundation held its first major fundraising event. A gala at a downtown hotel with dinner, dancing and silent auctions. Rochelle had planned every detail, working late into the night to make sure everything was perfect. She wore the only formal dress she owned, a simple green gown she'd found at a consignment shop. It was several years old but still elegant. She'd done her own makeup and hair, watching tutorials on her phone until she achieved something that looked sophisticated. When she arrived at the hotel ballroom, she was stunned by the transformation. The space glowed with soft lighting, round tables dressed in white linens surrounded a dance floor. A live band was setting up in the corner. Everything looked magical. "You did this," Nina said, appearing at her elbow. "This is all you, Rochelle." "It's stunning." Guests began arriving. Business leaders, philanthropists, community organizers. Rochelle worked the room, greeting everyone, making sure they had drinks and auction paddles. She was so busy she didn't see Ethan arrive until he was standing right beside her. He wore a black tuxedo that fit him perfectly, his hair styled back. But what caught her attention was the expression on his face as he looked at her. His eyes widened, his lips parted slightly, and he stared at her like he'd never seen her before. "You look beautiful," he signed slowly, then typed it to make sure she understood. "Thank you," Rochelle said, heat rising to her cheeks. "You clean up pretty well yourself." The evening progressed smoothly. Rochelle gave a speech about the foundation's work, telling the story of a family they'd helped. Her voice was steady, confident. When she finished, the room erupted in applause. Ethan watched from his table, pride evident on his face. During dinner, he kept finding excuses to touch her. His hand on the small of her back as they navigated through the crowd. His fingers brushing hers when he handed her a glass of water. Each touch sent electricity through her body. When the band started playing, couples filled the dance floor. Rochelle stood to the side watching. She'd never been much of a dancer. And she certainly didn't expect. Ethan appeared in front of her, holding out his hand. He typed with his other hand, "Dance with me?" "Ethan, I don't know if..." He typed again, "I can't hear the music. But I can feel the rhythm through the floor. And I can hold you. That's all a dance really is." How could she refuse that? She took his hand and let him lead her to the dance floor. He pulled her close, one hand on her waist, the other holding hers. They swayed together, not quite in time with the music but finding their own rhythm. Rochelle could feel his heartbeat against her chest. She could smell his cologne, something subtle and warm. She could see the pulse beating in his throat, just inches away. "Rochelle," he signed against her back, the gesture intimate. She looked up at him and the world fell away. The crowd, the music, the lights, none of it mattered. There was only Ethan looking at her like she was the only person in the room. He leaned down slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. His lips brushed against hers, soft and questioning. She answered by pressing closer, her hand sliding up to cup the back of his neck. The kiss deepened and Rochelle felt like she was falling and flying simultaneously. This was what she'd been waiting for without knowing she was waiting. This feeling of rightness, of coming home. When they finally pulled apart, both breathless, Ethan rested his forehead against hers. He signed with one hand, the other still holding her close. "I've wanted to do that for weeks." "Me too," she whispered, knowing he could read her lips. They stayed on the dance floor, swaying together, lost in their own world. Around them, people smiled and whispered, touched by the obvious connection between the foundation's leader and his director. Later that night, after the gala ended and the ballroom emptied, Ethan drove Rochelle home. They sat in the car outside the townhouse, neither wanting the night to end. "I need to tell you something," Ethan typed. "I didn't hire you just because you needed help. I hired you because I couldn't imagine not seeing you every day. The foundation needed a director, yes. But I needed you in my life. I've been falling for you since Christmas Eve, since your daughters ran up to me in that restaurant. I tried to tell myself it was just gratitude or friendship. But tonight, dancing with you, I couldn't lie to myself anymore." Rochelle read the message, tears streaming down her face. "I've been falling too," she said. "But I was scared. You've done so much for us. I didn't want you to think I was interested in you because of your money or your help. I wanted you to know that I'd feel this way even if you had nothing to give us but yourself. Ethan reached over and wiped away her tears with his thumb. He typed, I know. That's what makes this real. They kissed again, softer this time, sweeter. A promise of something beginning. When Rochelle finally went inside, she floated up the stairs on a cloud of happiness. The babysitter reported the twins had been perfect angels. She paid the sitter and checked on her sleeping daughters. Amara and Alina lay in their beds, peaceful and safe. Because of Ethan. Because of his kindness and his heart. But now he wasn't just their benefactor. He was becoming something more. Something that felt like forever. Winter gave way to early spring, and with it came a softening in everything. The ice melted from the streets, buds appeared on tree branches, and the relationship between Rochelle and Ethan bloomed like the flowers pushing through the thawing ground. They were careful though. Neither wanted to rush or risk what they were building. They went on real dates now, leaving the twins with a trusted babysitter. Dinner at quiet restaurants where they could talk for hours. Movies with subtitles that made Rochelle cry while Ethan held her hand. Walks through the city park where they fed ducks and learned more about each other with every step. Ethan told her about growing up deaf in a hearing world. His parents had been loving but overprotective, treating his deafness like a tragedy to overcome rather than simply a different way of experiencing life. He'd taught himself to read lips by age 5, got his first cochlear implant at 7. But he'd always felt like he was performing, pretending to be hearing to make others comfortable. I wore my implant every day until I was 25, he typed as they sat on a park bench one Saturday afternoon. Then I realized I was doing it for everyone else, not for me. Some days I like the sounds it gives me. Other days the silence is better. But people always ask why I'm not wearing it, like my comfort matters less than their convenience. Rochelle squeezed his hand. That must be exhausting. It was, he typed. Until I met people who didn't care. Who communicated with me however worked best. Your daughters did that naturally. Most adults never do. Rochelle learned about his business, how he'd started Right Technologies in his garage after graduating from MIT. The software he'd developed to help deaf people communicate through video calls had revolutionized the market. Within 5 years he'd been a millionaire. Within 10 a billionaire. But money doesn't fix loneliness, he typed. It just makes it more comfortable. I've dated a lot. Most women see the money first, me second. Some tried to fix my deafness, suggesting doctors or treatments. Others fetishized it like I was some kind of noble inspiration. No one just saw Ethan. I see Ethan, Rochelle said softly. His smile was worth everything. Rochelle shared her story too. She'd gotten pregnant at 22, fresh out of community college with a degree in business administration she'd earned while working full-time. Her boyfriend had seemed supportive until the ultrasound revealed twins. Then he'd vanished. I was terrified, she admitted as they walked along the riverfront. 2 babies. No partner. No family nearby to help. My parents died when I was 18, car accident. I had some friends but everyone has their own lives. I remember standing in the hospital with these 2 tiny humans, thinking I had no idea what I was doing. But you figured it out, Ethan signed. I had to. There was no other option. You do what you must for your children. I worked 3 jobs that first year, slept maybe 4 hours a night. Found a daycare that would take infants. Just survived day by day. You're the strongest person I know, Ethan typed. Rochelle laughed, the sound bitter. I don't feel strong. I feel like I've been barely holding on for 8 years. Like one wrong move and everything will collapse. That's what strength is, Ethan typed. Holding on when everything tells you to let go. Showing up every day even when you're exhausted. Protecting your daughters from seeing how scared you are. That's real strength. They sat on a bench overlooking the water, Rochelle leaning against Ethan's shoulder. The twins were at a birthday party, giving them these precious hours alone. What do you want? Ethan asked, typing slowly. Not for the twins. For you. What are your dreams? No one had asked her that in years. Maybe ever. Rochelle was always someone's daughter, someone's employee, someone's mother. Never just Rochelle, a person with wants and dreams of her own. I want to not be tired all the time, she said finally. I want to go to bed without worrying about money. I want to watch my daughters grow up without feeling guilty that I can't give them everything. I want to matter to someone not because of what I can do for them but just because I exist. She paused, then added quietly, I want to be loved. Really loved. The way I love the twins. Completely. Without conditions. Ethan set down his phone and used both hands to sign, making sure she watched carefully. You are loved. By me. Completely. Rochelle's breath caught. They'd been dating for 6 weeks and neither had said those words yet. They'd been careful, both afraid of moving too fast, of ruining what they had. But here it was. The truth between them. "I love you too," she said. "I tried not to. I told myself it was too soon, too complicated. But I can't help it. I love you, Ethan Wright." He kissed her there on the bench, the river flowing past, spring sunshine warming their faces. It felt like a beginning and a promise all at once. That evening they told the twins about their relationship. Not the details, but the simple truth that Ethan was now Rochelle's boyfriend, that he'd be around more, that their family was growing. Amara and Alina reacted with the pure joy of children who'd been hoping for exactly this outcome. "Does this mean you're our dad now?" Alina asked, signing and speaking. Ethan looked at Rochelle, asking permission with his eyes. She nodded, emotion thick in her throat. "If you want me to be," he signed to the twins. "Yes," they shouted in unison, throwing themselves at him in a tangle of arms and laughter. Later, after the girls were asleep, Rochelle and Ethan sat in the backyard, the night air cool but pleasant. They discovered that sitting outside helped their conversations feel less intense, the open space giving them room to breathe. "Are you sure about this?" Rochelle asked. "Taking on a ready-made family? 2 kids? All my baggage?" Ethan pulled out his phone, the screen glowing in the darkness. "I've never been more sure of anything. Rochelle, you're not baggage. Neither are the twins. You're what I've been searching for without knowing it. A family. A purpose beyond work. Someone to share my life with. The twins aren't an obstacle. They're a gift. Our gift. They'll expect things from you," Rochelle warned. "School plays, homework help, bedtime stories. Being a parent isn't just the fun parts." "I know," he typed. "And I want all of it. The good, the hard, the boring, the beautiful. I want to be there when they learn to ride bikes. When they have nightmares. When they're sick. When they graduate high school. I want everything." Rochelle wiped tears from her eyes. "They're going to love you so much. They already do." "What about their biological father?" Ethan asked carefully. "Should I worry about him coming back?" "No," Rochelle said firmly. "He signed away his rights 3 years ago when I asked him to either be involved or let me move on with my life. He chose to move on. I have full custody. He sends money maybe twice a year, always with a note saying it's the last time. The girls know he exists, but they don't ask about him anymore." Ethan nodded slowly. "If you're comfortable with it, I'd like to adopt them. Officially. Not right away, but eventually. When it feels right." Rochelle couldn't speak for a moment. She'd imagined many scenarios for her future, but this had never been one of them. A man who wanted to adopt her children, who saw them not as obligations but as desired members of his life. "Let's take it slow," she finally managed. "Let them get used to you being around more. Let us all figure out how this works. Then we can talk about legal stuff." "Slow is good," Ethan agreed, pulling her closer. "We have time." The weeks that followed were some of the happiest Rochelle had ever known. Ethan became a constant presence in their lives. He showed up for Alina's school play, signing "good job" from the audience in a way that made her beam. He helped Amara with a science project, the two of them building a model solar system that earned an A. He cooked dinner with them, taught them more sign language, read bedtime stories using exaggerated facial expressions that had the twins giggling. At work, people noticed the change in both of them. Ethan smiled more, seemed lighter. Rochelle glowed with a happiness that was impossible to hide. "You two are adorable," Nina said one day, catching them together in the break room. "The whole office is rooting for you." "I never expected this," Rochelle admitted. 6 months ago I was about to be homeless. Now I have a job I love, a safe place for my daughters, and a man who treats us like we're precious. It feels like a fairy tale." "Maybe it is," Nina said with a smile. "Maybe you all deserve a fairy tale." That night, Rochelle stood in her bedroom looking at herself in the mirror. She wore blue pajamas, her hair in a messy bun, her face clean of makeup. She looked tired but content. Happy in a deep, settled way she'd never felt before. Ethan loved her. Not despite her struggles, not because of what she could give him, but simply because she was Rochelle. She was seen, valued, cherished. It was more than she'd ever dared to hope for. And the best part? She knew with absolute certainty that this was just the beginning. Spring settled over the city with warmth and renewal, and the relationship between Rochelle and Ethan deepened with every passing day. They fell into routines that felt natural, like they'd been doing this for years instead of months. Ethan started keeping clothes at the townhouse. A drawer in Rochelle's dresser, a toothbrush in the bathroom. Nothing official but the small accumulations of a life shared. He'd stay for dinner most nights, help with homework, read bedtime stories to the twins. Then he and Rochelle would sit together on the couch, talking about their days, making plans, simply existing in each other's presence. The twins adored him. They'd rush to the door when he arrived, competing to tell him about their day. Amara wanted to show him every drawing she made. Alina insisted he judge all her impromptu dance performances. They'd started calling him Dad, sometimes testing the word out, seeing how it felt. It felt right. Rochelle watched this evolution with joy and terror in equal measure. She'd spent 8 years as the sole parent, making every decision, bearing every burden. Letting someone else in, trusting someone else with her daughter's hearts, was the scariest thing she'd ever done. But Ethan proved trustworthy every single day. When Alina fell off the monkey bars at school and broke her wrist, Ethan left a meeting to meet them at the emergency room. He sat with Alina through the x-rays, holding her other hand, keeping her calm with funny faces and gentle signs. When Amara had a meltdown over a math test she'd failed, Ethan spent 2 hours working through the concepts with her, patient and encouraging until she understood. Then he took her for ice cream and told her about all the times he'd failed tests in school, how failure was just information about what to study next. He showed up. Every time. Without fail. One evening in April, Rochelle's car died completely. The mechanic said the transmission was gone, repairs would cost more than the car was worth. She stood in the garage, staring at the useless vehicle, fighting tears. She'd bought this car 6 years ago, saving for months to afford even this beaten-up sedan. It had been reliable enough, getting her to work, getting the twins to school. But now it was dead and she had no savings for a replacement. The foundation paid her well, but she'd been using most of her salary to pay off old debts. She had maybe $2,000 in the bank. Ethan found her there, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. "What's wrong?" he signed, concern creasing his face. She explained about the car, about how she couldn't afford a new one, about how she'd need to take the bus, which meant leaving earlier for work, getting home later, having less time with the twins. Ethan listened, then pulled out his phone. "I'll buy you a car." "No," Rochelle said immediately. "Ethan, no. You've already done so much. I can't accept that." "Why not?" he typed. "I have the money. You need a car. It's simple." "It's not simple," Rochelle said, frustration and embarrassment making her voice sharp. "You've given us a house, a job, your time, your love. I can't keep taking from you. At some point, I need to stand on my own." Ethan set his phone down and took her hands, making sure she was looking at him before he signed. "You are standing on your own. You work hard every day. You're an amazing mother. You're brilliant at your job. Taking help isn't weakness. Smart. Why struggle with something I can easily fix?" "Because I don't want you to think I'm with you for your money," Rochelle said, the fear she'd been carrying finally surfacing. "I don't want people to look at us and think I'm some charity case you picked up, some woman who trapped a rich man." Ethan's expression shifted to something fierce. He typed rapidly, "Anyone who thinks that doesn't know you. I don't think that. The twins don't think that. Anyone whose opinion matters doesn't think that. And I don't care what strangers think. Let me help you. Please. Your daughters need you to have reliable transportation. Their safety matters more than your pride." He was right. Rochelle knew he was right. She thought about the bus route, about having to wait at stops after dark, about the twins walking 3 extra blocks to catch the right bus home. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay. But something practical, not fancy. Something that fits our lives." "Deal?" Ethan typed, relief clear on his face. The next day they went car shopping. Ethan had done research, finding safe, reliable vehicles in her price range. "My price range?" Rochelle asked as they pulled into the dealership. "What you would spend if you could," Ethan clarified. "I'm not buying you a luxury car. I'm buying you a safe, dependable vehicle with good gas mileage and high safety ratings. That's what you'd choose for yourself." They settled on a blue SUV, 3 years old, with excellent crash test scores and room for the twins' sports equipment and school projects. When the salesman quoted the price, Rochelle's stomach dropped. $20,000. But Ethan simply pulled out his credit card and handed it over. Driving home in her new car, the twins chattering excitedly in the back seat, Rochelle felt tears slip down her cheeks. "Thank you," she said when they stopped at a red light. Ethan reached over and wiped away her tears. He signed with one hand, "Family takes care of each other. That's what we are now. Family." That word again. Family. It was becoming real, solid, something she could believe in. May brought warmer weather and the twins' 8th birthday. Rochelle had planned a simple party at the townhouse, inviting a few classmates, ordering pizza, baking a cake herself. But Ethan had other ideas. He showed up the morning of the party with a tent rental company. Rochelle watched in amazement as they set up a massive white tent in the backyard, with tables and chairs, a bounce house, a face painting station and a magician. "Ethan," she said, overwhelmed. "This is too much." He grinned and typed, "It's their 8th birthday. I want it to be special. Let me do this, please." She couldn't say no, not when she saw his excitement, not when the twins came running outside and shrieked with pure joy at the sight of the bounce house. The party was perfect. 20 kids ran around the yard, their laughter filling the air. The magician performed tricks that left them all amazed. The face painter transformed them into tigers and butterflies and superheroes. Ethan was everywhere, helping with games, making sure every kid felt included, taking photos. He'd learned all the children's names, knew which ones were shy and needed encouragement, which ones were natural leaders. He was, Rochelle realized, going to be an amazing father. When it was time for cake, everyone gathered around the table. Rochelle had made a vanilla cake with chocolate frosting, decorated with pink and purple flowers. She'd set 8 candles on top, 4 for each twin. As she lit the candles, Ethan stood beside her. Together they led everyone in singing "Happy Birthday," in both spoken words and sign language. The twins' faces glowed in the candlelight, their expressions full of joy and love. They blew out their candles together and everyone cheered. Later, after the guests had left and the twins were examining their gifts, Ethan helped Rochelle clean up. They worked side by side, folding tables, taking down decorations, disposing of paper plates. "This was the best day," Rochelle said. "The girls will remember this forever." "Thank you." Ethan stopped what he was doing and turned to face her. He signed slowly, deliberately, "I want to give them everything. Every joy, every opportunity. I want to make up for the years when things were hard. I want them to know they're loved and safe and can dream as big as they want." "They already know that," Rochelle said, her voice thick with emotion. "Because of you." He pulled her into a hug and they stood there in the twilight, holding each other while the twins played inside. Rochelle felt something settle in her chest, something that had been unsettled for years. She felt peace. That night, after the twins were asleep, Rochelle and Ethan sat in the living room. He was scrolling through the photos from the party, smiling at the images of Amara and Alina covered in cake frosting. "I need to tell you something," Rochelle said suddenly. Ethan looked up, concern crossing his face. "I love you," she continued. "Not just a little bit. Not just casually. I love you deeply, completely, forever kind of love. You've changed our lives. You've given us everything we needed and so much more. You're going to be an incredible father to my daughters, and I can't imagine my life without you in it." She took a deep breath. "And that terrifies me. Because I've learned that good things don't last. People leave. Plans fall apart. Happiness is temporary. I'm scared that someday you'll wake up and realize we're too much work, that you're tired of being a parent, that you miss your old life. And if you leave, it won't just break my heart. It'll break theirs too. I don't think I could survive that." Ethan set down his phone and moved to kneel in front of her. He took both her hands and signed with such intensity that she couldn't look away. "I'm not going anywhere. Ever. I love you. I love the twins. This is my life now. The life I choose. The life I want. You're not too much work. You're everything I've ever wanted. And I will spend every day for the rest of my life proving that to you. I promise." Rochelle pulled him close, burying her face in his neck. She let herself cry, let out all the fear and hope and love she'd been holding inside. "I believe you," she whispered. "I choose to believe you." And she did. Despite her fears, despite her past, despite every lesson life had taught her about not trusting happiness, she believed him. It was the bravest thing she'd ever done. Summer passed in a blur of pool days, ice cream, and lazy evenings in the backyard. Ethan officially moved into the townhouse in July, his penthouse apartment sitting empty while he built a life with Rochelle and the twins. They were a family in every way that mattered, even if the legal paperwork hadn't caught up yet. Autumn arrived with cooler temperatures and the twins starting 3rd grade. They'd grown taller over the summer, more confident, more settled. Having Ethan in their lives had given them a stability that showed in everything they did. In October, Ethan asked Rochelle to help him plan the foundation's annual Christmas charity event. It was their biggest fundraiser of the year, attracting wealthy donors and community leaders. The money raised would fund their programs for the next year. "I want this year to be special," Ethan typed as they sat in his office looking at venue options. "I want to highlight the real impact we're having. Not just statistics but stories. Real families we've helped." "We could have them speak," Rochelle suggested. Give them a platform to share their experiences in their own words. Perfect, Ethan signed. And I want you to be the one who introduces them. You understand what they've been through. You can speak to the crowd in a way I can't. Rochelle felt nervous excitement flutter in her stomach. Public speaking had never been her strength, but she was getting better at it. And Ethan's faith in her made her want to try. They spent the next 2 months planning every detail. Rochelle coordinated with caterers, decorated committees, the audiovisual team. She reached out to families they'd helped, asking if they'd be willing to share their stories. She wrote speeches, revised them, practiced in front of the mirror. The twins were part of it too. Ethan arranged for them to perform a sign language piece at the event, a song about hope and kindness that would move the audience. As December arrived, preparations intensified. Rochelle found herself working late nights, coordinating with vendors, solving last-minute problems. Ethan was beside her through all of it, supporting her, trusting her judgment, backing her decisions. One evening, a week before the event, Rochelle collapsed on the couch with a groan. "Why did we think we could pull this off?" she asked. "There are 1,000 details and not enough time." Ethan sat beside her, pulling her feet into his lap and massaging them. He typed with one hand, "Because we're amazing. And it's going to be perfect. You've planned everything brilliantly. Trust yourself." "I'm so nervous about my speech," Rochelle admitted. "What if I mess up? What if people don't connect with what I'm saying?" "They will," Ethan typed. "Because you speak from the heart. You don't perform emotion. You live it. That's what makes you special." For the event, Rochelle bought a new dress. Something she chose herself, paid for with money she'd earned. It was blue, floor-length, with delicate beading around the neckline. When she tried it on at home, twirling in front of the mirror, the twins clapped and told her she looked like a princess. Ethan's expression when he saw her, though, that was everything. He stared at her for a long moment, then signed slowly, "You're breathtaking. The most beautiful woman I've ever seen." The night of the event arrived with perfect weather. Clear, cold, stars visible in the winter sky. The hotel ballroom looked magical, transformed by Rochelle's vision into a winter wonderland. White lights hung from the ceiling like stars. Tables were dressed in silver and blue. Ice sculptures decorated the corners. A small stage stood at the front, ready for the evening's presentations. Guests began arriving at 6 o'clock. Rochelle stood at the entrance in her blue dress, greeting everyone, making small talk, directing people to their tables. She felt nervous but confident, knowing she looked good, knowing the event would be successful. Ethan worked the room with ease, his tuxedo making him look every inch the successful businessman. But he kept glancing over at Rochelle, and every time their eyes met, he smiled. Dinner was served at 7. Rochelle barely tasted her food, too focused on the evening schedule. Between courses, she slipped backstage to check on the families who would be speaking. They were nervous, and she spent time reassuring them, reminding them that their stories mattered. The twins were there too, in matching maroon dresses, practicing their signs with serious expressions. "Are you nervous?" Rochelle asked them. "A little," Amara admitted. "But Dad said being nervous means you care," Alina added. "So it's okay, Dad." They called him Dad now, naturally, without hesitation. Ethan had become their father in every way that mattered. Rochelle felt emotion swell in her chest. After dessert, the lights dimmed. Rochelle took the stage, her heart pounding. She looked out at the crowd of 200 people, all watching her expectantly. She found Ethan in the audience. He was signing, "You've got this," and the sight of his encouragement steadied her. "Good evening," she began, her voice clear through the microphone. "I want to thank you all for being here tonight. Your support makes the work of the Right Foundation possible. Because of you, we've helped thousands of families this year. Families who were struggling. Families who needed hope." She paused, looking around the room. "I know something about struggling. A year ago, I was one of those families. I was a single mother working 2 jobs, barely making ends meet. I'd just been evicted from our apartment. I was taking my twin daughters to look at Christmas lights we couldn't afford to put up in our own home, trying to make them smile even though I didn't know where we'd sleep that week." The room was silent, everyone listening intently. That night, in a moment of pure childish kindness, my daughters approached a stranger in a restaurant. A man sitting alone. They noticed he was using sign language, and because they'd been learning ASL at school, they ran over to him. They didn't see a deaf man. They didn't see a billionaire businessman. They saw someone they could talk to. Someone who might be lonely just like we were. Rochelle found Ethan again. He was watching her with such love in his eyes that she almost couldn't continue. That man was Ethan Wright. And his response to my daughter's kindness changed our lives. He didn't just help us with money, though he did that too. He saw us as people who deserve dignity, opportunity, and respect. He gave me a job where I could use my skills. He provided safe housing. But most importantly, he showed my daughters that kindness exists in the world. That people care. That asking for help isn't shameful, and receiving it with gratitude isn't weakness. She gestured to the stage wings. Tonight, you're going to hear from 3 families the foundation helped this year. Each of them will tell you what our programs meant to them. I ask that you listen not just with your ears but with your hearts. Because these are the faces behind the statistics. These are the lives you're changing with your donations. The first family came on stage. A father who'd lost his job and couldn't afford his daughter's hearing aids. The foundation had provided them, along with job training that led to better employment. His daughter, now 9, stood beside him and signed her thanks to the audience. The second family was a grandmother raising 3 grandchildren after her daughter died of cancer. The foundation had helped with childcare, educational supplies, and grief counseling. She spoke about how the support allowed her to keep the family together instead of the children going into foster care. The third was a young couple who'd had a baby born with multiple disabilities. The foundation had connected them with resources, helped them navigate the medical system, provided adaptive equipment. They spoke about how alone they'd felt until someone from the foundation reached out. Each story was powerful, moving several audience members to tears. Rochelle stood to the side of the stage, watching people's faces transform as they understood the real impact of their donations. Then it was the twins' turn. Amara and Alina walked to center stage holding hands. The room fell silent as they began to sign and sing Silent Night, in perfect harmony, their small hands forming each sign with precision and grace. By the second verse, Ethan had joined them on stage, signing along. His presence gave them confidence and they performed beautifully. When they finished, the entire room stood in applause. Several people were crying openly. Rochelle felt tears streaming down her own face. This moment, this perfect moment, was everything she'd worked for. The rest of the evening passed in a whirl. Silent auction winners were announced, raising twice what they'd projected. Donors pledged additional support. People approached Rochelle to thank her for her speech, for her work, for making the foundation's mission so clear. But the best moment came at the end of the night, when the crowd had thinned and only a few stragglers remained. Ethan found Rochelle standing by the windows looking out at the city lights. "You were incredible tonight," he signed. "I've never been more proud of anyone in my life." "It went well, didn't it?" Rochelle said, finally allowing herself to relax. "Better than well. Perfect." He pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her waist. "You've built something amazing with the foundation. This wasn't just my vision anymore. It's yours too. Our shared purpose." Rochelle leaned back against him, feeling content and exhausted in equal measure. "I never imagined my life could be like this," she admitted. "A year ago I was desperate and afraid. Now I'm standing here in a ballroom wearing a beautiful dress, doing work that matters. With a man who loves me and daughters who are happy and thriving." "You deserve it all," Ethan signed against her back. "So do you," she replied, turning to face him. "You deserve love and family and happiness. I'm so glad we found each other." They stood together in the empty ballroom, holding each other, the city glittering below them. The night had been a success beyond measure. But more than that, it had shown them both how far they'd come, how much they'd built together. Later, driving home with the twins asleep in the back seat, Rochelle reached over and took Ethan's hand. He glanced at her and smiled, that private smile he reserved just for her. "This is our life now," she said softly. "All of us together. A real family." Ethan squeezed her hand in agreement. And Rochelle felt, for the first time in years, like she could stop waiting for the other shoe to drop. This was real. This was lasting. This was theirs. The holidays approached with all their accompanying chaos and joy. The townhouse was decorated with lights and garland. A real Christmas tree stood in the corner laden with ornaments, and the twins' excitement grew daily. Rochelle had never experienced a Christmas like this. A Christmas with enough money, enough food, enough time. A Christmas where she could actually enjoy the season instead of stress about surviving it. She and Ethan had plans to take the twins to see the city's famous Christmas lights display, to go ice skating, to bake cookies and watch holiday movies. They'd bought presents without worrying about the cost, wrapped them in beautiful paper, and hidden them in the closet where curious 8-year-olds couldn't find them. Life felt perfect. Which is why Rochelle should have known something would go wrong. The day before Christmas Eve, the foundation hosted a final donor appreciation reception at Ethan's office building. It was a smaller, more intimate gathering than the gala. Maybe 50 people, mostly major contributors and longtime supporters. Rochelle wore a green dress with a red cardigan, festive and professional. She'd learned to navigate these events with confidence now, moving through crowds with ease, remembering names, making connections. She was refilling her water glass at the refreshment table when she heard the voice behind her. "So you're the new girlfriend." Rochelle turned to find a woman in her early 30s, blonde and polished, wearing a designer dress that probably cost more than Rochelle's car payment. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "I'm sorry?" Rochelle said politely. "I'm Rebecca," the woman said, extending a perfectly manicured hand. "I went on a blind date with Ethan about a year ago. Didn't work out, obviously." Rochelle felt her stomach drop. This was the woman who'd walked out on Ethan at the restaurant. The one whose rejection had indirectly brought them together. "Oh," Rochelle managed. "I'm Rochelle." "I know who you are," Rebecca said, her tone sugary sweet. "Everyone knows who you are. The former grocery store worker who caught a billionaire's heart. It's quite the story." Rochelle felt heat rise to her face. "I don't know what you mean." "Don't you?" Rebecca took a sip of her wine, eyeing Rochelle over the rim. "I mean, it's obvious, isn't it? You were desperate, homeless, he was lonely and felt guilty for being rich. He hired you, housed you, and now you're together. It's very convenient." "It's not like that," Rochelle said, her voice tight. "Of course you'd say that," Rebecca replied. "But everyone's thinking it. Poor Ethan, taken in by a woman who saw his bank account and decided to play the long game. Brought her cute kids into it too. Smart strategy, really." "That's not true," Rochelle said, anger and hurt mixing in her chest. "I love Ethan. My daughters love him. We didn't manipulate him." "Darling, I'm sure you believe that," Rebecca said with false sympathy. "But the optics are terrible. Former employee dating her billionaire boss? Woman with kids latching onto a rich man? People are going to talk. They probably already are." She leaned closer, her voice dropping. "Here's some free advice. When the novelty wears off, when he realizes what a burden a ready-made family really is, don't make it messy. Take a nice settlement and disappear gracefully. It'll be better for everyone, especially those girls of yours." Rebecca walked away, leaving Rochelle standing frozen by the refreshment table. Her hands shook as she set down her water glass. The room suddenly felt too hot, too crowded. She couldn't breathe. Were people really thinking that? Was everyone at this party looking at her and seeing a gold digger? A woman who'd used her daughters to trap a wealthy man? She thought about the townhouse Ethan had given them, the job, the car, the Christmas presents piling up at home. She thought about how quickly her life had changed, how she'd gone from desperation to comfort in less than a year. It did look suspicious, didn't it? From the outside. Rochelle made it through the rest of the reception on autopilot, smiling and nodding but hearing nothing. When it finally ended, she told Ethan she wasn't feeling well and asked if he could take the twins to their friend's house for a sleepover. She needed to be alone. Back at the townhouse, Rochelle stood in the middle of the living room and tried to breathe. The Christmas tree lights blurred through her tears. All the decorations, all the gifts, all the evidence of a happy life suddenly felt like props in a play she was performing. Was Rebecca right? Had she used Ethan? Even subconsciously? She'd been desperate that night at the restaurant. Homeless, broke, terrified. When Ethan had offered help, she'd taken it. She'd said yes to the job even though she wasn't qualified. She'd moved into his house. She'd let him buy her a car. And then she'd fallen in love with him. But what if she'd fallen in love with the security he provided, not the man himself? What if her feelings were just gratitude disguised as romance? The front door opened. Ethan came in, concern written all over his face. He pulled out his phone immediately. "What's wrong? You left so quickly." "I need to ask you something," Rochelle said, not meeting his eyes. "And I need you to be honest with me." Ethan nodded, setting down his phone to sign, "Always." "Do you think I'm with you for your money?" His face showed genuine shock. He frantically typed, "What? No. Why would you ask that?" "Rebecca was at the reception tonight," Rochelle said, the words tumbling out. "She said everyone thinks I'm using you. That I saw a rich, lonely man and decided to trap him. That I used my daughters to manipulate you into caring about us. And Ethan, when I really think about it, when I look at the timeline, it's so fast. We went from strangers to a family in less than a year. That's not normal. What if she's right? What if I did use you without even realizing it?" Ethan stood very still, processing her words. Then he walked over to where she stood and took both her hands. He signed slowly, making sure she understood every word. "Rochelle. Look at me." She raised her eyes to his. You did not use me, he signed. You did not manipulate me. You did not trap me. I offered you help because I wanted to. I hired you because you're brilliant at your job, which you've proven every single day. I fell in love with you because you're kind, strong, funny, and real. Because you see me as Ethan, not as money or a disability or anything else. Because your daughters remind me every day that people can be genuinely good. He paused, his hands moving with intensity. Rebecca is bitter because I rejected her. She walked out on our date before she even knew me. Her opinion doesn't matter. And anyone who thinks you're using me doesn't know either of us. Rochelle felt tears streaming down her face. But what if they're right? What if I am just grateful and not actually in love? Ethan pulled out his phone and typed rapidly, then answer this. Do you feel happy when you see me? Do you think about me when we're apart? Does it hurt when you imagine your life without me in it? Do you care about my feelings, my dreams, my happiness as much as your own? When you look at me, do you see a man you want to spend forever with, or do you see a bank account? Rochelle considered each question honestly. She thought about how her heart raced when Ethan walked into her room. How she looked forward to telling him about her day, to hearing his thoughts on everything from politics to which cereal the twins should eat. How the idea of him leaving made her chest ache. How she worried about his happiness, wanted him to feel loved and valued and seen. I see you, she whispered. Just you. The man who makes me laugh. The man who reads bedtime stories with exaggerated expressions because it makes the twins giggle. The man who remembers my coffee order and brings me lunch when I'm too busy to eat. The man who sees all my flaws and loves me anyway. Then that's your answer, Ethan typed. You love me. I love you. What anyone else thinks is irrelevant. But people are talking, Rochelle said. Let them talk, Ethan typed. People always talk. They talked when I became successful so young. They talked when I moved my company headquarters. They talk about everything. But their opinions don't change the truth. We know what we have. That's what matters. Rochelle collapsed onto the couch, exhausted. I'm sorry. I should have trusted what we have. I should have ignored her. Ethan sat beside her and typed, You're allowed to have doubts. You're allowed to ask questions. I'd rather know what you're thinking than have you suffer in silence. But please believe me when I say this. You didn't trap me. You freed me. Before you, I was lonely and isolated. Now I have a family. A purpose beyond work. Joy. You gave me that. Not your daughters, though I love them too. Rochelle. The woman I fell in love with. He added, and for the record, if anyone is using anyone, I'm using you. You make me look good. You make the foundation actually function. You give me an excuse to eat cookies for breakfast and watch cartoons. So if we're keeping score, I'm definitely the beneficiary here. Despite everything, Rochelle laughed. Ethan's slight smile told her he'd been aiming for that response. I love you, she said. I'm sorry for doubting us. Don't be sorry, he signed. Just don't doubt again. We're solid. We're real. We're forever. They sat together in silence for a while, Rochelle's head on Ethan's shoulder. The Christmas tree lights twinkled and outside snow began to fall. What do we do about the gossip? Rochelle finally asked. Ethan pulled out his phone. We ignore it. We live our lives. We let our actions speak for themselves. People who matter will see the truth. People who don't aren't worth our energy. When did you get so wise? Rochelle asked. I had a good teacher, he typed, nodding toward her. That night, lying in bed, Rochelle thought about Rebecca's words and Ethan's responses. She thought about the past year, about every moment that had led them here. She'd been afraid, yes. Desperate, certainly. But she hadn't manipulated anyone. She'd simply been a mother trying to provide for her children, and she'd been grateful when help was offered. That didn't make her a gold digger. That made her human. And Ethan? He'd offered help not out of pity or naivety, but because he was genuinely kind. Because he saw people who were struggling and wanted to ease that struggle. That didn't make him a fool. That made him extraordinary. Their relationship wasn't a fairy tale or a transaction. It was real, built on mutual respect, genuine affection, and shared values. It was messy and complicated and imperfect because real love always is. But it was theirs. And no amount of gossip could change that. Christmas morning dawned bright and clear, the sun reflecting off fresh snow that had fallen overnight. Rochelle woke early as mothers do on Christmas, and lay in bed for a moment just feeling grateful. Beside her, Ethan slept peacefully, his face relaxed in a way it never was during waking hours. She watched him, this man who'd changed everything. His dark hair was messy, falling across his forehead. His breathing was steady and deep. Without his usual intensity, he looked younger, softer. He opened his eyes and caught her staring. His smile was immediate and warm. "Good morning," he signed. "Merry Christmas." "Merry Christmas," she whispered back, not wanting to break the quiet peace of the moment. They could hear movement upstairs, the twins trying to be quiet and failing spectacularly. Giggling, whispered conversations, the creak of floorboards. "How long do we pretend to be asleep?" Ethan signed with amusement. "Not long," Rochelle replied. "They have the patience of squirrels." As if on cue, two small bodies burst into the bedroom, launching themselves onto the bed with shrieks of, "Merry Christmas!" "Presents," Amara announced, bouncing enthusiastically. "Tree," Alina added. "Lights," Santa. Ethan and Rochelle exchanged glances, both thinking the same thing. These two perfect, energetic, wonderful children were about to lose their minds over the gifts downstairs. They gathered in the living room, still in their pajamas. Ethan had bought matching family pajamas, blue with snowflakes, and they'd all worn them to bed. The twins' eyes went wide at the sight of the presents piled under the tree. "Santa came," Amara breathed, her voice filled with wonder. "And he brought a lot," Alina added, equally amazed. They took turns opening gifts, the twins exclaiming over each one. Books and art supplies and science kits and clothes. Board games they could play together. Matching bracelets that said, "Sisters Forever." Rochelle opened her gifts from Ethan, touched by how thoughtful each one was. A leather journal for writing her thoughts. A photo album filled with pictures from the past year. A necklace with 3 small stones, one for each member of her family before Ethan came into their lives. "I wanted you to remember where you came from," Ethan typed when she looked at him with tears in her eyes. "Your strength, your resilience. Those stones represent you, Amara and Alina. You were complete before me. I'm just lucky to be added to your story." Rochelle couldn't speak. She just hugged him tightly, hoping he understood all the things she couldn't say. Ethan opened his gifts too. The twins had made him cards covered in glitter and drawings of their family. Rochelle had bought him a watch, nothing too expensive but something classic that would last. And inside the watch case she'd placed a note. He read it silently, his expression shifting from curious to emotional. Rochelle had written about the night they'd met, about how 2 little girls had seen past his deafness to the person underneath, about how that moment had saved her in ways he might never fully understand. "You saved me too," the note concluded. "You showed me that kindness exists, that people can be good, that asking for help isn't weakness. You taught my daughters that disability doesn't define a person, that different doesn't mean less. You taught me that I deserve to be loved, not despite my circumstances but including them. You are the best gift our family has ever received. Merry Christmas. All my love, Rochelle." Ethan set down the note and pulled Rochelle close, burying his face in her neck. She felt his shoulders shake and realized he was crying. She held him tighter, letting him feel whatever he needed to feel. After a moment he pulled back and signed, "I have one more gift. For all of you." He went to the closet and pulled out a large envelope. Inside were 3 smaller envelopes, one for Rochelle and one for each twin. "Open them together," he signed. The twins ripped theirs open with enthusiasm. Inside each was a card with a single question written in large letters. "Will you be my daughter? Forever and officially?" Amara and Alina stared at the cards, then at each other, then at Ethan. "What does this mean?" Amara asked. Rochelle opened her envelope with shaking hands. Her card asked a different question. "Will you marry me?" Inside the envelope was also a ring. Not ostentatious, not showy, but beautiful. A simple diamond on a platinum band, elegant and timeless. Rochelle looked up at Ethan, her vision blurred by tears. He knelt in front of the couch, pulling out his phone to type, "I want to marry you. I want to adopt the twins. I want us to be a real family, legally and officially. I want to wake up every Christmas morning for the rest of my life with the 3 of you. I want to be Amara and Alina's dad in every way. I want to be your husband. Will you let me?" "Yes," Rochelle whispered, then louder, "Yes. Of course yes." The twins were still processing, looking confused. Rochelle pulled them close. "Girls, Ethan is asking if he can adopt you. That means he'd legally become your dad. You'd be his daughters officially, not just in your hearts. How do you feel about that?" The twins looked at each other with that twin telepathy they'd always had. Then they looked at Ethan, their faces serious. "Does that mean you'll always be here?" Alina asked. "You won't leave?" "Never," Ethan signed emphatically. "I promise. I'll be your dad forever." "Does that mean we can call you dad all the time?" Amara asked. "Not just sometimes?" "I'd be honored," Ethan signed. The twins launched themselves at him, wrapping their arms around his neck. "Yes," they both shouted. "Yes, yes, yes. You can be our dad." Ethan held them both, his eyes closed, his expression one of pure joy. When he opened his eyes, he looked at Rochelle over the twins' heads, and she saw everything she needed to see. This was real. This was forever. This was their family. Later that morning, after the excitement had calmed slightly, they sat around the kitchen table eating breakfast. Pancakes, bacon, fruit, orange juice. The twins wore their new matching bracelets and kept holding up their hands to admire them. "When's the wedding?" Alina asked through a mouthful of pancake. "We haven't planned that yet," Rochelle said with a laugh. "Ethan just proposed an hour ago." "Can we be in it?" Amara asked. "Can we wear fancy dresses?" "Of course," Rochelle assured them. "You'll be very important parts of the wedding." Ethan typed on his phone and showed it to everyone. "How about a spring wedding? April or May? That gives us a few months to plan." "Perfect," Rochelle agreed. "Nothing too big. Just family and close friends." "We don't have much family," Amara pointed out. "Just us and Dad and Grandma and Grandpa, right?" Ethan had introduced them to his parents via video call a month ago. The twins had been nervous, but Ethan's parents had been warm and welcoming. They'd been shocked by how quickly their son had built a family, but supportive once they saw how happy he was. "Family isn't just blood," Rochelle said. "We'll have friends there too. People who love us and want to celebrate with us." "Can Tommy from school come?" Alina asked. "The deaf one? We could all sign together." "That's a wonderful idea," Ethan signed. "We can make the whole wedding ASL accessible." They spent the rest of Christmas Day in comfortable domesticity. The twins played with their new toys while Rochelle and Ethan sat together on the couch, planning their future in quiet voices and rapid texts. "I want to adopt the twins before the wedding," Ethan typed. "I want to stand up there and marry you as their legal father. Is that possible timeline-wise?" "We'll make it possible," Rochelle replied. "I'll start the paperwork next week. Their biological father already signed away his rights, so there shouldn't be complications." "Good," Ethan typed. "I want them to have my last name. I want us all to have the same last name." "The Wright family," Rochelle said, testing out the sound. "Rochelle Wright. Amara Wright. Alina Wright. I like it." "Me too," Ethan agreed, pulling her closer. That evening they video called Ethan's parents to share the news. His mother cried happy tears and his father gave a thumbs up enthusiastically. They promised to visit soon to meet the twins in person and start planning the wedding. As the day drew to a close and the twins finally wound down from their Christmas excitement, Rochelle tucked them into bed. They were still wearing their bracelets, still clutching the cards Ethan had given them. "Mama," Amara said sleepily, "is this real? Is Dad really going to be our dad forever?" "Really and truly," Rochelle assured her. "This is our forever family now." "Good," Alina mumbled, already half asleep. "I like having a dad." "Me too," Amara agreed. Rochelle kissed them both goodnight and returned downstairs to find Ethan standing by the Christmas tree, looking at the photos they'd taken that morning. The four of them together, smiling, happy. "This is the best Christmas I've ever had," Rochelle said, wrapping her arms around him from behind. Ethan turned and signed, "Mine too. Every Christmas. Every day. With you three, everything is better." They stood in the glow of the Christmas lights, engaged to be married, about to become a legal family. A year ago, Rochelle had been homeless and desperate. Now she was here, loved and secure and hopeful about the future. Life could change so quickly. One moment of kindness could change everything. Two little girls approaching a stranger could set off a chain of events that led to this, to love, to family, to home. "Thank you," Rochelle whispered. "For seeing us. For choosing us. For loving us." "Thank you," Ethan signed back. "For letting me in. For trusting me with your hearts. For building this family with me." They kissed, soft and sweet, a promise of all the Christmases to come. All the mornings and evenings and ordinary moments they'd share. All the joy and struggle and growth that came with building a life together. Outside, snow continued to fall, covering the world in quiet white. Inside, a family celebrated their first official Christmas together and looked forward to a lifetime more. The story could have ended here with a proposal and a perfect Christmas. But life isn't made of perfect moments. It's made of continuing to show up, continuing to choose love, continuing to build something lasting through all the ordinary days that follow the extraordinary ones. And that's exactly what they did. Spring arrived gradually, winter reluctantly releasing its grip on the city. Snow melted, revealing brown grass that would soon turn green. Trees budded with the promise of leaves. The world woke up, and with it, the Wright family prepared for new beginnings. The adoption paperwork moved faster than Rochelle had expected. Ethan's lawyers were efficient, and since the biological father had already relinquished his rights, there were no legal complications. By March, the court date was set. Rochelle, Ethan, and the twins sat in a judge's chambers on a Tuesday morning. The room was less formal than a courtroom, with warm wood paneling and comfortable chairs. Judge Martinez was a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a gentle smile. "These proceedings are usually quite simple," she explained, looking at the twins. "I just need to ask you some questions and then we'll make everything official." Amara and Alina sat up straight, their faces serious. They wore matching blue dresses that Rochelle had bought specifically for this occasion. "Do you understand what adoption means?" Judge Martinez asked them. "It means Ethan becomes our real dad," Alina said. "He's already our real dad," Amara corrected. "But this makes it legal." The judge smiled. "That's exactly right. Ethan Wright has petitioned to adopt you both. How do you feel about that?" "Happy," both twins said simultaneously. "Has Ethan been good to you?" the judge continued. "Does he treat you with kindness and respect?" "He reads us stories," Alina offered, "and helps with homework." "He teaches us sign language," Amara added. "And he makes Mom happy." "He loves us," Alina said simply. "We know because he shows us every day." Judge Martinez looked at Rochelle. "Miss Parker, do you consent to this adoption?" "Completely," Rochelle said, her voice thick with emotion. "Ethan has been a father to my daughters in every way that matters. This is just making official what's already true in our hearts." The judge turned to Ethan, who pulled out his phone to answer her questions through text. They went through the standard queries about his commitment, his understanding of parental responsibility, his plans for the girl's future. Ethan's answers were thorough and heartfelt. He explained his love for the twins, his desire to give them every opportunity, his commitment to being present for all the big and small moments of their lives. "Very well," Judge Martinez said finally. "I see no reason to delay. As of today, March 15th, Amara Parker and Alina Parker are hereby adopted by Ethan Michael Wright. Their legal names are now Amara Wright and Alina Wright. Mr. Wright, you have all the rights and responsibilities of a biological parent. Congratulations to your family." The twins erupted in cheers. Rochelle wiped away tears. Ethan signed "thank you" to the judge, his own eyes suspiciously bright. They took official photos in the judge's office, the four of them together with the adoption certificates. Amara and Alina couldn't stop smiling, holding up their papers like trophies. "We're Wrights now," Amara kept saying. "We're really Wrights. Forever and ever," Alina added, hugging Ethan fiercely. That night, they celebrated at home with a special dinner. The twins had requested spaghetti and meatballs, so that's what they had, along with garlic bread and a cake decorated with "Welcome to the Wright family" in blue frosting. As they ate, Rochelle watched her daughters, her husband-to-be, and felt overwhelming gratitude. A year and a half ago, she'd been terrified and alone. Now she had this: a family, a home, a future full of possibility. Wedding planning consumed the next several weeks. Rochelle had initially wanted something small and simple, but the guest list kept growing. Ethan's business associates wanted to attend. Foundation staff asked if they could come. The twins' friends and teachers requested invitations. Finally, they settled on a medium-sized wedding. 75 guests held at a garden venue on the outskirts of the city. May 20th, when the flowers would be in full bloom and the weather reliably warm. Rochelle chose a simple white dress, elegant without being ostentatious. The twins would wear matching maroon dresses as flower girls. Ethan would wear a classic black tuxedo. Everything was traditional but personal, reflecting who they were as a couple. The hardest part was writing their vows. Rochelle spent weeks trying to find words that captured what Ethan meant to her, what their relationship meant. Everything sounded trite or insufficient. Finally, she stopped trying to be poetic and just wrote from her heart. The weeks flew by in a blur of dress fittings, cake tastings, and seating arrangements. The twins were involved in every decision, taking their roles as flower girls very seriously. They practiced walking slowly and tossing pretend petals for hours. Ethan's parents arrived 2 weeks before the wedding. Robert and Patricia Wright were in their 60s, warm and welcoming people who'd raised their son to be kind despite his wealth. They took immediately to the twins, bringing gifts and stories about Ethan's childhood. "He was always sensitive," Patricia said one evening over dinner. "Always aware of how people treated each other. When he was 7, he saved his allowance for 6 months to buy a hearing aid for a classmate whose family couldn't afford one. "Mom," Ethan signed, embarrassed. "It's true," Robert added. "Our son has always had a generous heart. We're glad he found people who appreciate that about him." The night before the wedding, Rochelle couldn't sleep. She stood by the window of her bedroom, the one she'd been sleeping in alone, since tradition dictated Ethan stay elsewhere the night before. The garden venue was visible in the distance, lights strung through trees, everything prepared for tomorrow. Her phone buzzed with a text from Ethan. "Can't sleep either. Keep thinking about tomorrow. About getting to call you my wife. About this life we're building. I'm the luckiest man alive." Rochelle smiled and texted back, "I'm the lucky one. You saved us. You gave us everything." "No," he replied. "You gave me everything. Purpose. Love. Family. Tomorrow isn't just about us getting married. It's about celebrating what we've built together. What we'll continue building. I love you." "I love you too," she typed. "See you at the altar. Wouldn't miss it for the world." The wedding day dawned clear and beautiful. Rochelle woke early, her stomach fluttering with nervous excitement. She could hear the twins already up and chattering in their room, their voices high with anticipation. The morning passed in a whirl of activity. Hair and makeup, getting dressed, helping the twins with their flower girl duties. Rochelle's hands shook as she stepped into her wedding dress, a simple A-line gown with lace sleeves and a flowing skirt. When she looked in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. This confident, glowing woman couldn't be the same person who'd been evicted and desperate 18 months ago. "Mama, you're beautiful," Amara breathed, coming into the room in her maroon dress. "Like a princess," Alina added, joining her sister. "You both look beautiful too," Rochelle said, pulling them close. "My gorgeous daughters." "We're getting a dad today," Amara said, her voice filled with wonder. "We already have a dad," Alina corrected. "Today Mom gets a husband. Today we all become the right family officially," Rochelle said. "Today is about all of us." The garden venue was transformed into something magical. White chairs lined a path covered in rose petals. The arch where they'd exchange vows was covered in flowers, blues and whites and greens. Guests were already arriving, taking their seats, murmuring about how beautiful everything looked. In the groom's area, Ethan stood with his father and his best man, Trevor from the foundation. He wore his tuxedo with ease, but his hands kept moving, signing nervously to himself. "Calm down," Robert said, clapping his son on the shoulder. "She loves you. This is just the formality." "I know," Ethan signed back. "But this is the biggest day of my life. I want everything to be perfect." "It already is," Trevor assured him. "You're marrying the woman you love, adopting 2 amazing kids. It doesn't get more perfect than that." The ceremony began at 4 o'clock. Guests stood as the processional started. First came Amara and Alina, walking slowly down the aisle, tossing rose petals with serious concentration. They reached the front and took their places, beaming at everyone. Then came Rochelle, escorted by Ethan's father since her own parents were gone. She walked slowly, her eyes locked on Ethan at the front. He watched her approach with an expression of such love that several guests reached for tissues. When she reached the altar, Robert placed her hand in Ethan's and stepped back. Rochelle and Ethan stood facing each other, hands clasped, the twins standing beside them. The officiant was a woman from the deaf community who signed and spoke simultaneously, ensuring everyone could follow along. "We are gathered here today," she began, "to witness the union of Ethan Wright and Rochelle Parker. But this isn't just a marriage between 2 people. This is the joining of a family. Ethan, Rochelle, Amara, and Alina have chosen each other. They've built something beautiful together. Today they make that commitment official and permanent." She invited Ethan to share his vows first. He pulled out a small card he'd written, but then set it aside and signed directly to Rochelle, speaking the words aloud simultaneously so the hearing guests could follow. "Rochelle, 18 months ago I was sitting in a restaurant feeling sorry for myself. I thought I'd always be alone because of my deafness. Then 2 little girls ran up to me and signed hello like it was the most natural thing in the world. In that moment everything changed. You could have pulled them away. You could have apologized and left. But you stayed. You let me share your Christmas Eve. You let me into your lives." He paused, emotion making his signs less precise. "You didn't see a rich man who could solve your problems. You saw a lonely person who needed kindness. And you gave me that kindness freely. You gave me friendship, then love, then family. You taught me that being deaf doesn't make me incomplete. That I can be a father, a husband, a full person despite what others might think. You showed me what real strength looks like, what real love feels like. Rochelle was crying openly now, not bothering to wipe away the tears. Today I'm not just marrying you, Ethan continued. I'm promising to be the best father I can be to Amara and Alina. I'm promising to show up every day for the big moments and the small ones. I'm promising to build the life you all deserve, the life you've already started building. I promise to love you through every challenge, every joy, every ordinary day. I promise to be worthy of the trust you've placed in me. I love you, Rochelle Parker. I love our daughters. I love the life we're creating. Thank you for choosing me. There wasn't a dry eye in the audience. Even the officiant had to pause for a moment to compose herself. Then it was Rochelle's turn. She pulled out her own vows, but like Ethan, she found herself speaking from the heart instead. Ethan, I don't have a speech as beautiful as yours. But I have a truth. You saved us. Not just physically, though you did that too. You saved us emotionally and spiritually. You showed my daughters that kindness exists in the world. That people can be good. That asking for help isn't shameful and receiving it with grace is okay. She reached for his hands. You showed me that I deserved more than survival. That I deserved joy and love and partnership. You taught me that being vulnerable isn't weakness. That accepting help doesn't make me less capable. You've been everything I needed without making me feel small for needing it. I promise to love you the way you've loved us. Completely, without reservation. I promise to be your partner in everything, your equal even when our circumstances started so unequal. I promise to keep learning sign language until I'm fluent. I promise to raise our daughters to be as kind and generous as you are. I promise to build this life with you, through every challenge and every triumph. I love you, Ethan Wright. Thank you for seeing me. The officiant prompted the ring exchange. The twins presented the rings, proud of their crucial role. Ethan slipped a simple band onto Rochelle's finger. She did the same for him, her hands shaking slightly. By the power vested in me, the officiant signed and spoke, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Ethan, you may kiss your bride. Ethan pulled Rochelle close and kissed her deeply. The crowd erupted in applause. The twins cheered and jumped up and down. Camera flashes went off. When they finally broke apart, both grinning, the officiant made one more announcement. Ladies and gentlemen, for the first time officially, I present to you the Wright family. Ethan, Rochelle, Amara, and Alina Wright. The reception was held in the same garden, under a large white tent strung with lights. Tables were decorated with blue and white flowers. A small dance floor occupied one corner. A buffet table offered food for every taste. Rochelle and Ethan had their first dance to a song they'd chosen together, one with a strong beat he could feel through the floor. They swayed together, lost in their own world, while guests watched and smiled. Then the twins joined them on the dance floor and it became a family dance. The four of them together, laughing and spinning and celebrating. During dinner, several people gave toasts. Trevor spoke about watching Ethan fall in love, about how different he'd become over the past year. Nina talked about Rochelle's transformation from a nervous new hire to a confident leader. Ethan's parents shared stories about their son's childhood and expressed their joy at gaining 2 granddaughters. Then Amara and Alina asked if they could say something. Rochelle nodded, curious what they'd prepared. The twins stood up together and Alina pulled out a piece of paper. They took turns reading, signing as they spoke so Ethan could follow easily. Our mom is the strongest person we know, Amara began. She worked really hard to take care of us. Sometimes we were scared, but she was always brave. Then we met Dad, Alina continued. We saw him signing in a restaurant and ran over because we wanted to talk to him. Mom let us stay. Dad was kind to us, Amara said. He bought us dinner. Then he helped us have a home. Then he became our family. Mom and Dad got married today, Alina added. But they've been married in our hearts for a long time. We're glad they made it official, Amara finished. Because now we're the Wright family forever. We love you both. They signed I love you in unison, then ran to hug their parents. There wasn't a dry eye in the tent. As the evening wound down and guests started to leave, Rochelle found herself standing with Ethan on the edge of the dance floor, watching the twins dance with their new grandparents. We did it, she said softly. We did, Ethan agreed, pulling her close. I keep waiting for something to go wrong, Rochelle admitted. For this to be too good to be true. Ethan turned her to face him. He signed slowly, this is real. This is our life. Stop waiting for disaster. Start believing in happiness. I'm trying, she said. Try harder, he signed with a smile. We deserve this. All of us. That night, after the reception ended and the guests departed, the new Wright family went home together. The twins fell asleep in the car, exhausted from excitement. Ethan carried them both inside, one in each arm, and tucked them into bed still in their flower girl dresses. Rochelle and Ethan stood in the doorway watching their daughters sleep. "Our daughters," Ethan signed. "Legally and officially. Our family," Rochelle added. "Forever." They went to their own bedroom, the one they'd now share as husband and wife. As they got ready for bed, Rochelle caught sight of herself in the mirror. She wore her wedding dress, her hair falling down from its elegant updo, her makeup smudged from happy tears. She looked happy. Truly deeply happy. Ethan came up behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist. He met her eyes in the mirror and signed with one hand, "Beautiful. My beautiful wife." "My amazing husband," she replied, turning to face him. They kissed, sweet and slow, a promise of all the nights to come. Then they simply held each other, swaying slightly, dancing to music only they could feel. Outside, the city lights twinkled. Inside, a family slept peacefully. The Wright family, built not on blood or convenience, but on choice and love and kindness. 18 months ago, Rochelle had been homeless and terrified. Now she was here, married to a man who loved her completely, raising daughters who were safe and happy and thriving. She had meaningful work, financial security, a community of friends. But more than any of that, she had hope. She had love. She had family. The story had started with rejection, with loneliness, with two little girls who'd seen a stranger and decided to say hello. It had continued through challenges and growth and moments of doubt. But it ended here in this moment, with Rochelle and Ethan standing together as husband and wife, as parents to two beautiful daughters, as proof that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness create the biggest miracles. Sometimes being seen is all it takes to change everything. Sometimes love finds you when you need it most. Sometimes happy endings are just happy beginnings in disguise. And for the Wright family, this was only the beginning of forever. 6 months later, epilogue. The foundation had its best year ever. Under Rochelle's leadership, they expanded their programs and helped twice as many families as the previous year. She hired more staff, opened satellite offices, partnered with organizations across the country. The twins thrived in school, their sign language skills advancing to the point where they could interpret for their deaf classmates. They'd become advocates for disability awareness, teaching their friends that different doesn't mean less. Ethan stepped back from day-to-day operations of his company, naming a successor so he could focus on the foundation and his family. He coached the twins' soccer team, attended every school event, read bedtime stories every night. On Christmas Eve, 1 year after Ethan had proposed, the Wright family returned to the restaurant where it had all started. They sat at the same table, ordered the same meals, and remembered. "A year ago today," Rochelle said, looking around at her family, "we sat here and you asked me to marry you. And to let me adopt the girls," Ethan added. "Best decision I ever made." "Best decision we all made," Amara corrected, signing as she spoke. "We chose each other." "All of us," Alina agreed. "We're a team." The twins were older now, more mature, but still the same joyful children who'd run up to a lonely deaf man and changed his life. They still signed to everyone, still saw the best in people, still believed in kindness. As they ate their dessert, a family entered the restaurant. A mother with 2 young children, all of them looking tired and worn. The mother checked her purse anxiously, probably counting money. Rochelle and Ethan exchanged glances. They both recognized that look, that fear, that desperation. Without discussing it, they called over the waiter. Ethan typed a message on his phone and showed it to the server. "The family that just came in. Put their meal on our bill. Don't tell them who paid for it. Just say someone wanted to help." The waiter smiled and nodded. As they left the restaurant, Rochelle looked back to see the mother's face when she received her food. The surprise, the relief, the gratitude. She knew exactly how that woman felt. "Paying it forward?" she asked Ethan as they walked to their car. "Always," he signed. "That's what we do. We help. We see people who are struggling and we offer kindness. Just like you taught me." "You taught me," Rochelle corrected. "You showed me what generosity looks like." "We taught each other," Ethan replied, pulling her close. "And we'll teach the twins. Kindness creates more kindness. Love creates more love." The twins ran ahead to the car, laughing and chasing each other through the parking lot. Rochelle and Ethan followed more slowly, hands linked, watching their daughters with pride. This was their life now. Not perfect because life is never perfect, but good, full, rich in the ways that mattered. They'd started as strangers who needed each other. They'd become friends who supported each other. Then partners who built together. Then family who loved unconditionally. And it had all started with a simple act of kindness. Two little girls who saw someone signing and decided to say hello. Sometimes that's all it takes. Sometimes love speaks without words. Sometimes the greatest miracles come from the smallest gestures. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, you get to be part of a story where kindness wins, where hope persists, where love transforms everything. The Wright family had that luck. And they'd spend the rest of their lives making sure others had it too. Because that's what love does. It multiplies. It spreads. It saves.